Right. In three, two, one. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to another episode of Somehow You Didn't Die on Your Way to Work, a transit industry safety podcast. I'm Joe Zeta,
I'm Zach Lybrand.
and we're looking at a very, very Texas flavored image here.
I didn't know Metro ran in Texas.
I mean, Frisco, the museum has those highliners.
They do. We don't talk about those. Don't acknowledge them.
Inexplicable seven highliners.
Don't not talking about it. I have opinions on that I probably shouldn't say if I want to keep working there.
Ah. No, you're going to go on to the next slide then. Today's episode is on the crash of Texas International Airlines Flight 655, which is a crash that you haven't heard of, and that
I sure as
isn't,
hell hadn't heard of it.
and it really isn't anything, but we're going to talk about it anyways because it's a perfect example of one of these crashes where nothing is learned and like a very quiet tragedy happens and nobody gives a shit. But before we have to talk about quiet tragedies, we have to talk about the current ongoing horrors in our life, the news.
That news.
So, first we start with the news brief. Can I get the 10-minute timer?
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that. Uh-oh, 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 uh-oh. Timer. I'm going to use the 10-minute timer for testing nitrates in my aquarium that I have saved. So we'll use
What
that.
a
Good enough.
sentence. Uh, so, are we good?
I think so.
Yep. Right. So we're gonna go clockwise from the like 10 o'clock-ish position. This tweet from noted urbanist poster Alan Fisher. I don't have like more info on this. Allegedly, Sean Duffy, man who I hope dies and is in charge of transportation in this country, right? Discount Pete Buttigieg, Sean Duffy, is is currently looking into allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly because I don't know where Alan's sources are from, is trying to basically British Rail Amtrak, where they've formed a infrastructure holding company and a real estate holding company, and one has to assume a like rolling stock holding company, and basically they're going to like European privatize it, and that's bad. No more information on this at yet, but I mean, just when you thought that Amtrak couldn't get worse.
That's what I was about to say. You think Amtrak sucks right now? Well, go ahead and privatize it in
Mm.
3 different companies.
Yes, it'll be very bad. In not very bad news, we have this one here. This was brought to us by a friend of the pod, Sarah, who lives in Connecticut. A train near Mansfield, Connecticut, got sleepy and fell over. This is normally not a newsworthy thing, but it was carrying liquid propane. Fortunately, the liquid propane did
Spicy
not
gas.
The liquid propane did not leave. One car carrying some form of waste cooking oil did leak a little, but nothing really that bad.
Not great.
Um,
Could be a lot worse, though.
yep.
It
Well,
wasn't East Palestine 2.0.
it was in the middle of nowhere, so it would have been nowhere in quotes because nothing in Connecticut's in the middle of nowhere. Um,
I don't think they have enough room for anything to be nowhere.
yeah. Um, then in this one up here, Amtrak cancels more than 20 trains due to equipment issues due to ongoing snowmageddon, because we are recording this on the 7th of February, 2026. Amtrak has canceled a lot of trains since we recorded last due to snow because the we're running into the wrong type of snow issues that British Rail was famously beguiled with in the 90s, where the Amtrak Siemens Chargers just can't handle snow for some reason, and so they go and so they just don't. And then the new Acellas that they're getting from Alstom in New York are having issues because they also can't handle snow, and so they're just not.
I'm curious to see what the newest Cellas actually have a hard time dealing with when it comes to the snow. I've heard about the Siemens Chargers don't like taking in that much cold air because they have the gigantic air intakes on the rear. But
I thought the
I
Chargers, actually took the snow in, and the snow went right
do
on
they
top of.
really?
They take snow in, and something it's, like, right on top of the traction motors, and the snow melts and shorts it.
Oh, hell yeah.
This,
Oh, that's some fantastic design.
in
Because
fairness, this
we've only traction motors are such a new technology.
In fairness, in the 50s, this apparently happened to the GG1s, which is why the Pennsylvania Railroad, fitted much more beefy filters to the GG1s afterwards,
No kidding, huh?
if you've ever noticed those in historical pictures.
I'm gonna
Uh,
have to go back and look now.
um, and the Metroliners also experienced that too, which they then had to be towed by GG1s in the 80s.
Rad.
Um, so then this next picture is what happens when a tin can gets run over by a car. But in actuality, this is a police helicopter for the Arizona Department of Public Safety, which crashed in Flagstaff and killed two officers
Oh, I
after.
hadn't heard about that one. Oh my god.
Actually, if you the whole reason I heard about it was if you see here in the ticker for the train derailment in Connecticut, you can see police
Oh,
helicopter crashes near
oh,
Flagstaff. That's where I heard about this. It was responding to some normal Arizona calamity where like the cops were shooting at a guy and he was shooting back with like 100 rounds. And
oh
at some point the
my god.
helicopter crashed. There's maybe I don't think this happened. I don't think the helicopter got shot down, but helicopters just love to crash, so who knows?
A
Um,
protracted gun battle ensued with the unidentified suspect hopping from roof to roof in the neighborhood. Oh, yeah, I can see why they wanted the helicopter out.
GTA 7 is just Phoenix, but, um, that's something. It'll probably continue to just be mild something, not anything really worth talking about. Something that'll be very funny to talk about, though, is the next one down. Norfolk Southern Train 12G put 60 cars on the ground on Horseshoe Curve. Which this was, the helicopter crash was on February 4th. Norfolk Southern was also on February 4th, which
Ooh,
is,
not a great day.
yeah, which means that everybody's FOMO images for like the rest of the summer will be, these cars on the side of the tracks near the curve.
Oh, you think they're still going to be there when the UP runs the big boy by there?
Yeah, I think so.
Hell yeah.
No better picture of the merger than that.
Hell yeah. That's
Uh,
perfect.
speaking of, uh, Speaking of, which one do I have next? Oh, yeah, this one. This one in the middle. This was on February 4th as well.
Yep.
God, these all happened in the last couple of days. This one, Horseshoe Curve, might have been the February 5th, but on February the 4th, this train right here, which is a Govia Thameslink train, derailed inside Selhurst Depot in London. Um, we've been shown a video of it by an anonymous source because I don't know whether or not he's allowed to show it to
Major
us.
shout out to this person for sending it to us. It is the saddest little video of this collision.
But it what happened was that 2 trains were moving next to each other in the yards, and the points under one of them just directed that into the back of the other train, and they bonked into each other and crashed. The net effect of this was somehow half of London couldn't get to work. Transport for London had to issue a do not travel alert,
Hmm.
and I don't know how that happens, but I
It
sure am glad that
apparently the cleanup fouled main tracks, so
God
they
love the
couldn't get
UK.
anything. Yeah, that's
Um, Next up, we have 2 aviation incidents. So, on the 25th of January, this right here, a Bombardier Challenger 650, registration November 10 Kilo Juliet, was flying from Houston Hobby Airport to Chalon-Vatry Airport in France with a fuel stopover in Bangor, Maine. Um,
I did know Challenger 650s could fly overseas.
I guess, well, they had to stop for gas in Bangor. So,
Yeah.
um, they they landed, fueled up, went to leave. Evidently, they waited a little bit too long after de-icing because it was snowing. It was the middle of Snowmageddon, and the plane, uh, Challenger 650s are very susceptible to, stalls when even just a little bit of ice and snow are on the wing, and it just flipped over and crashed, killed 8. Everybody on board who were passengers were employees and family members of Houston area personal injury law firm Arnold and Itkin, who who owned the plane through a shell corporation.
How
So
bizarre. I
I guess
wonder.
I guess there will be no shortage of lawyers for the
Oh
lawsuit.
Lord, no. Yeah, no, 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 no. Somebody, they're going to sue everybody possible, I'm sure.
Um, but that was on the 20 that was on the 20 5th, and then on the 5th of February, this one we might not have heard of yet. This Flight Radar 24 graphic. SAS flight 2590 from Brussels to Copenhagen attempted to take off on a taxiway at Brussels airport. Um,
Oh,
the Airbus A320 registration Sierra Echo Romeo Oscar Mike SEROM managed to make it to 107 knots before they realized what the problem was and stopped. Nobody injured, no damage or anything, so it might not be much. But hey, they almost, they
oh, they're
almost,
going to get in trouble for that
oh
one.
yeah, oh they almost biffed it hard. Um,
That we hear about this happening every now and then, and it always throws me off because I'd like to know what the weather conditions were for this one because the markings for taxiways and runways are very different on purpose.
Yeah, I think what must have happened is that you can see the runway is right below it, and the long white lines for the displaced threshold are right there. They must have just gotten like one turn not far enough.
Maybe like yeah, maybe.
But but yeah, and so that is the news brief. We now go on to the news long,
Yeah,
which
perfect timing with the news brief.
this right here is the worst plane accident of 2026 so far.
Oh
On
boy.
oh fuck, did I not write down the date? Jeez. Oh, uh, please tell me I wrote down the date. Can you Google how the fuck? I wrote down everything else. I wrote down the fucking
Oh, where was it?
Wikipedia, probably.
What country?
It just Google it's in the notes. Just Google it.
Ah, we're
Okay.
professional.
I can't
TF
believe
flight
this. It's probably
8849.
right here in Spanish, which I can't read.
January 28th. Oh, wait, yeah.
It
Look, look,
is
look, right
there.
there. The last 28 de enero. Oops.
What
Wish I could read
is that?
Spanish better.
Oh,
The
thanks.
last three things on the first
I
paragraph
saw
on the right image.
28. I didn't know what it meant.
Well,
28
they
in the
didn't capitalize de enero, so I was like, that's probably not a month. It can't be.
oh my okay. So I all the goodwill wasted with doing the news brief so perfectly on time. Anyways, Satana Flight 8849 crashed in Colombia. Okay? It's going from Satana is basically a Colombian owned, like it's a majority Colombian government owned airline that does the equivalent of essential air service flights domestically. You know,
Okay.
it flies from nowhere to nowhere, that sort of thing. Like, or like nowhere to somewhere to provide service to people who don't have roads otherwise.
Yeah.
Um, it was going from 2 cities I can't pronounce, Cucuta to Ocaña. I don't have any idea of where those are. I apologize if you're Colombian. I don't know anything where this is. It was a
I know
beach.
almost nothing about Colombia, so I
I
can't help either.
Nope. Um, it was a Beechcraft 1900D registration Hotel Kilo 4709, which was originally built for US Airways Express or one of their express operators. But it was being operated actually by a charter airline called Circa, SEARCCA, and was carrying 13 passengers and 2 crew. At some point around like noon local time, it disappeared and then proceeded to crash at some point afterwards.
Huh.
No no real information as to what occurred yet, but you can see in You can see in the picture here that it
It
just sort of stopped
looks
existing
surprisingly intact for a
behind
full
the
fatality crash.
yeah, but it was also in looking in front of the wings. There's just nothing there anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, like we could still
Right.
see where the windows for the cockpit were.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
mean,
Maybe they hit something.
yeah, I'm not surprised that there were fatalities. I'm just surprised that everybody died.
Yeah, we're not. Very little information has come out about this. I don't think that Colombia has a terrible reputation for safety, but I'm interested to see what the eventual report will be. This was not a this was not a nice accident. You got to be in like the middle of the Colombian rainforest sort of thing, and then just
Yeah,
yeah. I'm not. I honestly have no idea what happened here.
I am
Um,
curious about that one. I look forward to hearing a little bit more about it.
yeah. If you do live in Colombia, I'm sorry that I mispronounced everything, but please do keep us informed if you ever hear about this again. Or if you just speak Spanish. There has to be someone who knows.
There's probably like a full report of exactly what happened, but it's all in Spanish and we haven't found it yet.
Yeah. Well, it's only been a couple of days, so we'll have to see. And then next we have a slide from our weather correspondent, Zach Lybrand, with our Texas news report.
So as we were recording the last episode, Snowmageddon had already begun. The state was in chaos and pandemonium, and that was after roughly a 16th of an inch of snow, and it only went downhill from there. Uh, we actually, the state did kind of shut down for a couple of days. It was kind of nice. I got some pay time off of work, which is always cool. But towards the end of it, I realized that the my driveway faces north, and it probably wasn't. There's a lot of it that wasn't going to melt for a little while, so I started trying to shovel it off. And Joe, if you'll
I
hit
have
the
the
next
yep.
button so you can see the picture up. Yeah, the I sent Joe this picture, and he just said, "Throw some ice melt on it. You're going to kill yourself." And I was like, "Well, that's a little bit of an over exaggeration. This stuff's a little hard to
No.
clear up. Let's keep going." And then I learned about the term heart attack snow. And Texas was
Oh.
covered in a decent layer of heart attack snow, my driveway included. So this was not just a little,
Okay, you didn't have heart attacks, so you had ice. Your
yeah,
driveway iced over. Like, this is 3 or 4 solid hours with a specialized chipper tool, which I know you didn't have.
no, I have a transfer shovel though.
I will the snow will kill you. I can't Jesus Christ.
So I went out there, slaved away at
Also, I would like to
clearing
point out
all
that
this
this
stuff.
man this man said to me, "I don't want my driveway to heave up." And I'm like, "Bro."
No, no, no. I didn't say heave up. I said that if I throw salt on it, it pits. And that's ugly stuff. And I didn't have any proper snow melt that'll work okay for it. And
No, no,
there
hold
was
on,
none
hold
in
on.
stock because nobody
I'm
has
gonna
this.
I'm gonna go to the receipts because you did absolutely say that you didn't want your driveway to
I'm
heave
looking
up.
too. I didn't say heave up. I said
Yes, you
chip up.
did. Yes, you did. What day
Where'd it
was
go?
this?
There's the picture where I finished it up.
Where
26
is
at
it?
5:31. You said perpetual bags of ice melt salt like we all do up here. I said I could get them, but I won't use those. The water gets in the cracks of the cement. The mix dilutes enough that the water can freeze, and then you get spalling into your driveway. I learned that that's partially wrong. Uh, there's mixes that are fine for clearing it out that won't cause issues with your driveway. But the only thing I had that would work is salt, which absolutely does mess up driveways.
Yeah, and my mom happened to be walking by as I was laughing at your Southern ass response, and she said, "What a Southern response to that problem?"
Mm-hmm. And
And then asked if she had a flamethrower or gasoline, which is which is the northern versus southern attempts to deal with this is like the the ice will not survive versus the southern like, "Oh gee, I hope I don't hurt myself doing this.
well, also I shoveled all
Why
this
does my
out, and
left arm hurt?"
Well, I mean, funny you mentioned that. Someone who's close to me, I won't mention who, has a heart condition that I probably have as well. And it kind of makes its presence known when I do strenuous work like this. I haven't been tested yet, but I was feeling a lot of the same symptoms. Nothing that requires urgent care, but those signs that are like, "Hey, you probably have this condition." While I was breaking through all of this ice and shoveling it out, so I got to schedule an EKG at some point.
I
I mean, it's not like a heart attack or something. I just might not have
stairs and
enough valves in my heart.
stairs in Midwestern. My driveway would have been iced the night before, and you know what? It was.
Well, that's because you
Or
have
would have
stores
been,
that actually carry that stuff out here or out there.
you know, you just need to buy some ahead of time. Have it from last winter.
You know what I look at? I looked at who is carrying that now, and the answer is still nobody. That's not a thing here. So I have to
That's
order some online and have it shipped in.
Hey, it'll save your ass next time.
Yes, it will. I'm definitely not messing with this again.
But gee, I wonder why they call it heart attack snow. He says it's his heart like spasms.
When my heart's thumping a million times a minute, like way harder than it should for a relatively small amount of work.
Hey
But
Sasha,
having a bicuspid heart,
my heart jumped out of my body and is going on strike right now. Can you drive me to the hospital?
but first, can you finish shoveling this out? I almost got it done for you. I don't want it to refreeze. All
Motherfucker,
right.
you live in Texas. It won't freeze again.
Well, actually, it didn't get up above freezing for another 4 or 5 days
Then it
after
won't
that.
melt. Even better.
But I had to go to work before that.
Drive on the foot. Your other layer of snow on there. You'll be fine.
No, 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 that was not powder. That was ice.
You'll still be fine. Just get a running. Just either park on the street or get a running. Go into your garage when you get home.
Dude, I'm not parking on the street. If you saw how my neighbors drive down that street, you wouldn't park on the street either.
Stay at work. Be productive. I'm sure there's a customer that has to be switched somewhere.
God, no. The first day I went back in, we had one customer to work because everybody else had been shut down as long as we had. But that's it. Texas survived the snowmageddon. Kind of, sorta.
Allegedly, somehow.
Kind of, sorta. We still haven't learned how to drive, even though this seems to happen every year now.
Meanwhile, we had a level 3 for a couple of days, and then we were fine. It's
Someday I dream of the state being prepared for this.
they won't be.
No.
Greg Abbott will just have a power wheelchair in front of him with a salt spreader on it, and that's it.
No, he won't. Then he'd be useful.
No, no, it just goes in front of him. There'll be another one behind him with a street sweeper, so it just de-ices him.
That sounds more like the Greg Abbott I know.
But but anyways,
All
now we
right.
must go on to the actual episode. In case you've forgotten, this is the crash of Texas International Flight 655, but to get there, we sort of have to ask, what was Texas International? And wow, this is such a busy slide.
I hadn't heard of this airline before we started looking into this.
No, you heard of it because in the last episode, in 2 episodes ago, I brought it up, which is why I started thinking of Texas International, and then I started Googling it.
That's right, because we were looking at DFW, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, before that, I sure as hell hadn't heard of it.
So Texas International was, well, it was a lot of things. The root of all evil, perhaps, but we'll get to that. And some other things as well. It started out with in the 1940s, like so many airlines did before the advent of the Interstate Highway Act. It was a fixed base operator at Houston Municipal Airport. And eventually they just started up as an airline at some point. Sources are inconsistent um, like when the actual accident between like when the airline started and like on Wikipedia, on other sites. I think Kyle, Texas has a website about this for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's not like who could. I got some of these images from a website that was literally called Kyle, Texas, and that had a page for Trans Texas Airways, because that's what it was originally
Okay.
called. Um, yeah, I know, right? Like Texas history is very dispersed because why would it
That's
ever
not
be
the
sent?
source I would have expected for that.
I don't know if it's a municipal website or if someone just has one, but um, Texas Internet. God, Trans Texas Airways was what they eventually named the airline after they named and did Aviation Enterprises was what it was originally called. It was changed to Trans Texas in the mid to late 1940s. Um, I have either 44 or 47 as a date. They flew as did everybody else, they flew Douglas DC-3s. Their one notable thing, if we can see up in the top left image, is that they had cowgirl stewardesses.
I did see this. I This is a really, really hokey postcard, and it's a perfect product of its time.
Uh-huh, and you can see they had the DC-3s behind them, which looks like every other DC-3 where you just write the name on the side of the airplane with Sharpie.
Yeah, maybe add a little accent mark around the cockpit and the tail.
Yeah, um,
For just a second, I want to describe this because I have been told that there are a few people who are just listening to the audio. This postcard we're talking about shows a Trans Texas Airways stewardess uh, standing in front of a plane that's viewed from the left rear, and the stewardess is wearing like a denim blue blouse, a matching wide brim, probably cowboy hat. She has on a gray vest, a yellow bow around her neck, and then a gray skirt that goes down just below the knees, and then cowboy boots. Black cowboy boots with white accents below that. And it's labeled a typical Trans Texas Airways hostess.
with a big welcome aboard above her outstretched hand as she
Oh yeah,
waves
that's right. She's
his
waving
adieu.
at us.
And the Trans Texas Airways airplane is, of course, a Douglas DC-3.
Yeah, I was
But,
looking at that one in the bottom right. That one actually looks nice.
yeah, so, so once we've gotten beyond, so TTA actually did fairly well for themselves. They started expanding because, inter-Texas travel is something that, you can drive for 10 hours and you'll still be in Texas. You
Yeah, I
can
had a car that was
yeah,
shitty like that too.
you can take the train for a bunch of hours and still be in Texas. And you've also got like places in the middle of goddamn fucking nowhere that you theoretically have to fly to. Like actually one of the stops on these old maps that I found for it is Uvalde, which nobody knew
Ooh.
about. Nobody knew about before current events, but has been I have been informed has been there for many years. And so, like, you would just fly to, this let me just look at this, for a second. It would be yeah, so this was like you would leave San Antonio, the flight would go, like, Uvalde. Can you read these maps at all, Zach? Because 'Cause I'm having to move
Oh,
my head around the
so
mic.
tiny. Hang on. Let me see.
Uvalde,
So,
Eagle Point, Del Rio, Fort Stockton or something, and then it would just go on.
yeah, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, Uvalde to San Antonio. Let's see. They went south, Beeville, Corpus Christi, Harlingen, and McAllen, which are both like right on the very, very southern border. What other small towns? Marfa and Alpine in West Texas.
They
Uh,
they went to Nowheresvilles,
yeah,
basically, and this was something you could do in the 40s and the 50s because cars were still like they weren't a novelty. Novelty is the wrong word here, but they were still things that like, you wanna drive to Marfa from Dallas?
you
You
sure you want to?
you looking to die, son?
Fort Stockton. I was actually just talking about Fort Stockton earlier today. I looked up how long it would take me to drive to Fort Stockton. It's terrible. I would fly there if I could and
Why
get
would you
back
have
in a
to
day.
drive why would you have to drive to Fort Stockton?
Because I'm interested in seeing the historic fort out there.
Oh. Oh, there is an actual fort. Okay.
There's an actual fort out there.
So yeah, and and for anyone who's curious, there is another airline that would eventually like do very well with trans Texas flying, and you might know it today. It's called Southwest Airlines. This is
The You might be familiar with the husk of the former great airline Southwest.
They did very well for themselves until they didn't, but we'll not
Mm,
dwell on
mm,
that. Um,
mm.
but
Venture
anyway,
capital is evil. No, that's not venture capital, is it? What's the
oh,
term?
hold on. I'm going to ask you to hold all these comments about this until we get to the end of this
Oh boy.
podcast.
Oh boy.
I have a
Oh
whole
boy.
slide for that, but
Oh boy.
basically, Trans Texas just sort of flew wherever the hell that nobody lived. They did it.
Yeah, they've reached. Go on. Go on. Go on.
They eventually started going, expanding their remit a little bit. They made it out into Mississippi, into Louisiana, into Arkansas. They expanded into bigger airliners like the Convair 240, which you can see at the right. And then eventually in the 1960s, like late 1960s, 1966, they got the Douglas DC-9, which you can see here in its delivery paint, which was this nice silver and blue scheme.
It's a
Funnily
weird
enough,
blue.
funnily enough, the DC-3 was retired in 1968. So
Damn.
for for a moment, Trans Texas Airways, look, you had to transfer from a DC-9 to a DC-3, which this sort of nonsense is why after Trans Texas started just abbreviating themselves to TTA on the side of the airplane, people started coming up with rude acronyms for them, like Tinker Toy Airways or Treetop Airways.
Oh, that's the best thing to do with these small little companies that
Hmm.
are supposed to transport you safely but don't.
Well, they've never had an accident as far as I can tell. So it's really just making fun of them because they had shitty airplanes and stuff
Yeah.
like that, as one does. This is not the first time it's happened, it's not the last. But as we get into the 1960s, TTA is not doing spectacularly. If we go on to the next slide, TTA, they expand into Mexico. Um, they get interstate, was it Civil Aviation Board or Interstate Commerce? They get regulatory approval because this is still in the era of airline regulation to expand into Mexico, and they get a couple of other routes out into beyond, like into I think like Arizona or New Mexico, as well as further
Okay.
and further into the west. So now they're Texas International Airlines. They fly to like they fly to Monterrey, Mexico, and then they later get three more spaces down there. They update their look to this really weird b- white, purple, and light purple. Um,
Yeah, that light purple band around the windows is a choice.
yeah, this weird, and the DC-9s, which I should mention, the DC-9s were introduced as pamper jets. I don't understand why.
Ooh.
I assume because they were so much quieter than the DC-3s.
It is an upgrade.
Yeah.
It's not
Um,
top of the line, but it's an upgrade.
Around the same time, they started upgrading the Convair 240s they had to what's known as a Convair 600, which is they basically put Rolls-Royce Dart turboprops on them instead of the whatever piston engines had come from them in the factory. So, but in 1968, this also happened because in 1968, TTA was purchased by from its original owners. Keep in mind, TTA had been in one family, the McCann family, MC capital K AUGHAN, since the 1940s. It was purchased by a Mr. Carl Pollard and Minnesota Enterprises Inc. Uh, I don't know if you think these names are important, not in the slightest. I have absolutely no information about trans. Let me put it this way: Trans Texas and Texas International are very historically important airlines within the airline industry. All of that shit happens after this accident. Nothing that really goes on with Texas International before then with this white and purple airline nobody cares about, nobody knows about. There's no retrospective books about it, as far as I can tell. So you'll forgive me if I don't have a lot of information for you, but it seems like this is just another cowboy airline out in the middle of nowhere that is just not doing great. Because I'm going to quote now from a New York Ti New York Times, article from 1978 doing a retrospective, okay? The airline flew obsolete planes to many towns where there was little business, lost $6 million a year, carried 20 million in unpaid debts, and seemed headed for bankruptcy.
Hell yeah. Solid business model.
Keep in mind, this is in 1960. This is like 1970s money, like 1970 money.
Let's see. We need to roll that back to 1976.
No, 1970. Yeah,
Yeah,
specifically.
said enough zeros. No, I need one more zero. So they were losing $51 million a year in
Yeah,
today's money. And how much do they have in unpaid debts? Uh
20 million.
I the calculator I'm using can't figure out that much, so we'll have to tweak it just a little bit. It can only figure out half of that. All right. So that would $1.6 billion in debts.
Yeah, Texas International ain't doing so hot.
Or wait, I may have done too many. I may have moved too many zeros. I did, not 1.6 billion. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
160 million.
that's
I
still
was like,
not
that
doing.
seems excessive.
That's borderlining the bank's problem money.
Yeah, that really is.
And
But I mean,
actually,
this definitely seems like the kind of airline that would pop up back in the day where you could pay like $100 filing fee and, pay
yeah,
for a new coat of
which,
paint.
funnily enough, this was the bank's problem, specifically Chase Manhattan Bank in New York
Oh,
City. So if we go to the next slide, now we get into the more historically relevant portions of Texas International. So I don't know again, I do not know the exact specifics of this, but Texas International was losing money hand over fist. At the same time, there was a relatively new corporation in New York City called Jet Capital Corporation. Jet Capital Corporation was won by a couple of MBAs from Harvard, Frank Lorenzo and another guy whose name I don't remember, and quite frankly, I don't care about. Um, they were friends from Harvard. They started up this business. They were both very young. I think they were like in their 30s at this point. They had helped refinance British West India Airways a couple of years previously, and their bigger thing was they helped bundle together a package of refinancing for a non-scheduled charter airline that would eventually become known as Universal Airlines. This is not something that you would know about today, but this is what they did then that sort of put them on the map. So Chase Manhattan comes to Frank Lorenzo and basically asks him to help refinance Texas International. And he
okay.
does. He does. As you can see here in this comic strip from the New York Times, it's no longer Treetop Airways. Um, he or Frank Lorenzo um, gained controlling interest in Texas International through this restructuring and refinancing, and basically takes this turd and polishes it into a fucking diamond. Texas International was losing in 1972 $6 million annually, and in 1976, 4 years later, they had an annual profit of $3.2 million.
That's a
So
hell of a turnaround. How do you do that?
cut wages, among other things,
Oh,
streamline operations, drastically cut wages, just basically do everything you can to run this airline as minimal cost as possible. They this is a later thing. I want everyone to know this. Basically, I think that by 1973, they probably slashed wages. I think that by 1973, they were starting to run the airline like a venture capital company. But
I remember that term I was looking for earlier, activist hedge fund.
yeah, they were running it like that. But the thing that we have to notice is
That
that
I'm
we're
seeing
going
flavors of that today.
we're going to get into the accident, and I don't think any of that has happened yet. I think that in 1973, Texas International was still the yeehaw cowboy treetop airways that sort of just did whatever the fuck they wanted.
I
And
think that is probably foreshadowing. I think that's probably why this accident happened.
oh, absolutely. There's this is like we haven't gotten into the accent yet, and but this is definitely one of those ones where it's like, you did what? Like even this snazzy new paint usually comes with snazzy new pilots, so
Mm,
it's not exactly like um it was things were bad, but the not yet. Not yet. Does this make sense to everyone?
I hope so. Keep going for just a moment. I'll be right back.
Oh, no. Oh, no, he's left. Okay. So we're going on to the next
Won't be
slide.
long.
We're going on to the next slide. Now we have to talk about a specific aircraft. November 94230. This is the airplane that we'll be talking about for the rest of this episode because this is the one that crashed. Um, it was originally an American Airlines Convair 240. You can see over here on the left. Um, Originally known as both flagship Columbus and flagship Kitty Hawk, because that is something that American Airlines did back in the day. They It was a very early Convair 240, built built in 19 April of 1948 with serial number 56. That's how new this thing was. And for anyone who's wondering, the Convair 240 was basically Convair was another aircraft manufacturer. This is one of the first pressurized airliners outside of like the bigger Boeing Stratoliners and everything. This was one of the first it was basically the DC-3 but better in terms that it could be pressurized, it could fly higher, it could go a little faster. Um, American Airlines really wanted these, which is why they had so many. Eventually, about 1,000 would be built, and a couple are still flying today, mostly in Canada, and not really anywhere else because it was the DC-3 but better, but the DC-3 they sold 10,000 of, and they sold only 1,000 or so of these. So generally, just it was a big name back in the day. Now it's not. Um, but this specific aircraft was with American Airlines until February of 1961, when Texas International bought it off of American. It was put into service in March and basically continued on as an airplane until 1960 February of 1967, when it was upgraded to a Convair 600. Now, Convair 600 is just an internal marketing term for in an inter not an internal marketing term, an internal name for the upgrade to the with the Rolls-Royce turboprops. There was
It's
also
this. It's literally the same plane with
yeah,
different engines.
there were other variants like the Convair 580 was with different turboprops. So it's the same airplane. Um, the Rolls-Royce Dart is a very well-known power plant. None of that is going to be of issue here. As of the day of the accident, the airplane had 51,208 hours and had performed 25,913 landings. And I think it'll have performed at least 2 more before it crashes. So,
That's that's a little broken in at that point.
yeah, actually, I went and Googled the highest number of hours in an airplane. I think the highest hours in a helicopter is something like 80,000. And then for commercial airliners, there's a couple 747s that have like over 150,000 or 100 over 140,000. And then Hawaiian Airlines Boeing 717 fleet is just doing like 40 or 50,000 cycles.
Oh
Like
my
it's
god.
insane. Um, so this is broken in, but it's not broken. Do you have any questions about this, Zach, before we go on to the next slide?
No, I just wish I could have seen it because every one of these paint schemes looks cool. I
Well,
I miss the more creative and evocative paint schemes.
I love the 1970s paint schemes. The Futura with like the the swoosh with the star on it is so good
It's
for
so
Texas
nice.
International. It's the
Plus,
one
the American flagship scheme always looks great.
unless it's except for the new one they put on the 777. Did you see that one yet?
No, oh
They
no.
did a heritage livery on it like last month. It looks terrible.
Well, now I gotta look. Oh, oh, oh! How'd you ruin that?
I'm not putting it in up here. You'll have to do this searching for yourself.
Just search American Airlines 777 Heritage Paint, and you'll actually get a lot of results of people complaining about it.
Because they didn't do
Ew.
because it's not polished silver, it's silver paint.
Yes, silver paint is never a substitute for polished silver or polished aluminum
But polished aluminum, that's what it is. But
or polished stainless steel. Don't paint your railroad cars silver if they're made out of stainless steel. It already looks fine.
there we go. We're back on track now.
I
Now we
have
gotta
opinions about paint schemes.
I bet. I now we have to go on to the next slide, which I couldn't find anything, so I'm gonna let Zach talk about this.
I found startling little uh, about these two. The captain was William Crossman. No, excuse me. I'm sorry, Captain Ralph Crossman. I can't read my own notes. First officer was William Tumlinson. I
Is it
have
really
to.
Tumlinson?
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
So Crosman was 41 years old. He had been hired by Texas International on June 15th, 1959. So that's I already forgot what was the old company called.
Trans Texas.
Trans Texas. So he would have hired with Trans Texas Airlines. Survived through the acquisition. He was promoted to a captain on May 15th,
Mm.
1964. So he had almost a decade of captain experience. Uh, let's see. He had just gotten a check ride, or basically a proficiency check, September 18th, 1973. So
Like
that
a week
would
before.
be a week before. And then he had a what's called a line check. I couldn't figure out what that was on
Oh,
May 8th. So a
a
few months
line
before.
check is basically when, an inspector just turns up at the gate and says, "Hey, I'm watching you today. Don't fuck up."
Mm. So he got checked out while like a surprise inspection, basically.
Yeah.
Um, he he had also just received a medical certificate on the same day as his proficiency check, which was 9 days before the incident, and there was nothing of note
Yeah,
about him.
he had 11,800 hours,
Holy cow!
of which 6,000 were in the Convair 600 or equivalent aircraft. Um, he was rated for the DC-3, all of the Convairs, and then commercial private aircraft and with single and multi-engine land endorsements. He'd flown almost 200 hours in the last 3 months.
Okay, that's pretty good. And what I also noted was that he had made this trip 9 times that month, and every single one of them was with First Officer William Tumlinson. And Tumlinson again was a rather unremarkable guy. There's not much I could find on him either, except for an appendix on the NTSB reports.
Yeah,
And
he had
he was
71 oh,
oh I didn't get the hours rating, but
I have the report opened. He had
I probably
71
should have copied that down too.
he had 7,100 hour 7,106 hours total, 4,500 of which were in the Convair. He was rated in just airplane like, single and multi-engine aircraft just in general, instrument rated, had flown 205 205 and a half hours in the last 3 months. So again, and these guys were well rested. They were experienced. They knew what they were doing, despite all. And it's just that, and in spite of that, they managed to fuck this up. I don't have any nicer way of saying it.
It- they knew where they were going. They should have at least been familiar with the area.
This is a
Uh,
very like anticlimactic accident. Like,
it's
you know what's going to happen.
yeah, and okay, I'm gonna spoiler this a little bit, but both of these guys died in this incident, and here's Joe. Here's the weird coincidence I mentioned pre-show. Ralph Crosman is buried in the same cemetery as my dad's parents, and William Tomlinson is buried in the same cemetery, and actually startlingly close to my older brother. Like,
Wild.
I have probably been bored and wandering around. Probably been bored and wandering around and walked past Tomlinson's grave.
You need to get a picture.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
That's wild.
Yeah, both
Why
of these
is
guys
every
were
weird coincidence with you involve like death? Like this, the
you seem
funeral
to
home with
attract
the
that in the
monorail.
family.
Okay, that's you're the grim coincidencer.
That's right. That's right. I don't wear a black robe and carry a sickle. I wear like a dark blue hoodie and carry
A Ouija board.
what to carry. Yeah, that's right. I do carry the Ouija board, at least when I'm at work.
Mhm. So, so yeah, just people who spiritually are near Zach somehow.
I Yet one I don't know, weird connections for such a huge state. There's a lot of it's a small world.
Texas is a
But yeah,
small world after all.
like I was saying, I could barely find anything on these two guys. As a matter of fact, the I had to go to find a grave to get a picture of these guys, and I presume it's from their obituaries, but
I
I
couldn't find anything on the
I don't know.
passengers either. Like I couldn't like I
No,
mean,
nothing.
yeah, so you'll have to forgive us on this. This is one of these accents where it's like, what did we learn? Nothing.
Yeah, unfortunately. So what do we got next? What's the flight?
Oh, this is a Texas international specialty. Where are we going? From somewhere to somewhere with stops over in where? Huh? And there?
Well, it starts and
So
ends in big cities.
yeah, so this is so flight 655 was the back portion of an out and back loop that the plane made from Memphis to Dallas Love Field via Pine Bluff, Arkansas, El Dorado, Arkansas, not El Dorado, El Dorado, and then Texarkana, Arkansas, not Texas, and then
It's the same damn thing.
onwards to Dallas from there. This is a drive that you can probably make in about 6 hours on, uh,
Which
on I-30.
which portion of that? Because I my employer can pay me to go out to Texarkana, and if I drive, I get paid 3.5 hours just to get to Texarkana.
I've driven from Dallas to Memphis. It took all day, but it's not
That's more than a
undoable.
6 hours, you said.
6 I don't know, it took we left when it was light out, and it was still light out when we got there.
That's fair, but you also got to just stay on 30. You didn't have to skip over to El Dorado and Pine Bluff along the way.
Yeah, this is really like this is one of these flights that goes from to nowhere, and actually, even still, if we click on the screen again, these are still places that get, essential air service flights. So Pine Bluff no longer has airline service, but Texarkana still does to Dallas, and El Dorado is actually about to get a new EAS operator, next month, where Contour
Oh,
Airways is gonna fly to DFW as well.
look at
So
that. That's a decent little paint scheme on the contour plane. I kind of like that.
Yeah, Contour is really trying to be a little bit more of an upmarket EAS operator. Everybody seems to like them. So good on Contour. Also, I found out that you can absolutely use Contour as an actual airline because I was looking on their flight. You can apparently, there's one series of flights where if you go from like West Virginia into Charlotte, you can then connect to another Contour flight and go on to Alabama.
Contour Airlines, where EAS doesn't have to suck.
Basically, yeah, because the one that El Dorado used to have was Southern Air Express, which was Cessna 208s,
Ooh,
which is terrible.
ooh, those are tiny.
Yeah, those are,
I don't know if I could stand up in that.
that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to sit there and hope that the big fan at the front doesn't stop spinning.
Fair.
Um, and as you can see, all these legs on this flight are like tiny. Memphis to Pine Bluffs is 127 miles. Pine Bluffs to El Dorado is 83 miles. El Dorado to Texarkana is 70 miles. And then it's 171 miles to Dallas. So not a not a long flight by any means. Only should take a couple of hours.
Yeah, that seems like it wouldn't be a bad flight to work. I'd kind of like, you know, getting some good distance, but getting breaks and not having to do it all at once.
Yeah. And then just so that everyone is cleared, please ignore the giant star shape up at the middle top of the image. That's totally not there for any reason. Foreshadowing is a literary device. Uh,
Well, what else might indicate why we're talking about this?
well, we're going to go to the next slide. That's what we're going to talk. What it'll do.
Oh,
So,
I don't like that blob. That
which will,
radar map looks angry.
yeah, that's not the actual radar map. That is just something that I found online that showed weather near these places.
I mean, that does look fairly typical for a September storm.
Actually, that is the first line in my notes is not actual storm system, but basically what happened was that as the flight was nearing El Dorado, so okay, I need to go through this in order. I apologize. The flight left Memphis at 6:42 p.m. Sunset was at 7:01. And I don't have a time for when it landed at Pine Bluff or when it took off at Pine Bluff, but landing at El Dorado was at 7:53. So this is all in the dark. Okay.
Okay.
At 7:51, which is presumably on their final approach to El Dorado, the crew was talking with I guess the tower operator in El Dorado, basically saying that their weather radar was painting a solid line of storms about 50 miles west of there. So this storm system I have is actually further along. It's not even near Texarkana yet, but it would have been between El Dorado and Texarkana, probably near like Magnolia or something, if not even closer to like Texarkana by like Hope, Arkansas, if that makes any sense. Um,
Yeah, but that looks like about the right pattern. It's just that satellite image or that radar image captured it further west.
yeah. Um, they They hadn't yet figured out how they were going to get through this line of storms, but don't worry. There's a couple of guys on the ground at El Dorado who had come from further west. They'd been briefed on the weather a little bit more. You guys can talk to them when you land. So they land there. They land there, and then this they found really interesting. They while on the ground, they used the plane's weather radar to paint the storm and found a 15-mile wide break in the weather, 35 miles west northwest of the airport. So, two notes here. I sure hope that no one was standing in front of the airplane when they did that.
For real, those are some strong radar waves.
And second of all, for anyone who doesn't know, in 1977, Southern Airways Flight 242 found themselves in a very similar set of circumstances out in Alabama. Okay. They were flying towards a thunderstorm and discovered with their weather radar that there was a break in the storm some distance away. They flew into it, and at that point, they discovered that actually their weather radar, when the storm was a certain strength, it would actually just ping off of it and act like there was nothing there.
Well,
And they flew
yeah, a
into it
little
and
issue.
crashed. So, for all that we know, there was actually nothing there. There was no break there, but we don't know
These
for certain.
these storms generally don't have a break. It's just a massive solid wall that follows like a high pressure or a low pressure front.
Yeah, so really, absolutely nothing is going to be like helped here, but they don't know that. And actually, the storm itself doesn't really impact the accident outside of like being a looming specter. Like Zach, do you want to read the weather reports for a second?
Yeah, let's take a look at El Dorado at 1955 hours. Estimated 25,000 feet broken, visibility 7 miles, temperature 78 degrees Fahrenheit, dew point at 75 degrees Fahrenheit, wind calm. The altimeter was set at 30.05 inches. Then the weather report just under an hour later at 2054 hours is almost exactly the same, except the it says that there's lightning and clouds distant southwest.
Texarkana's got a little bit more though, but
Yeah, I'm surprised there's so much of a difference between these two. So Texarkana, 1954 hours, record special, 2,000 foot or 2,000 scattered, estimated 4,000 overcast, visibility 7 miles, thunderstorm, light rain showers, temperature 73 degrees Fahrenheit, dew point 70 degrees, wind 120 degrees at 10 knots, altimeter setting 30.05. Thunder began at 1943 hours southwest, moving northeast. Frequent lightning and clouds and cloud to ground, all quadrants. Peak wind 130 degrees at 35 knots, gusts to 48 knots. That's a pretty strong storm. So, a little less than an hour later, it looks like it's died down a little bit. Uh, very light rain showers. Temperature is still 73, dew point still 70. The wind is at 210 degrees, which, oh my God, what would that be? That would be southwest.
I have no idea.
Yeah, 8 knots, a little better. Thunderstorm ended at 2051 hours, moved northeast, occasional lightning and clouds, northeast south. Peak wind 180 degrees south at 15 knots, gusts to 35 knots. So it's still windy, but it's definitely dying down compared to just shy of an hour prior.
Yeah. And so at when let's see, at 8:15 p.m., which would be 2015,
Mhm.
um, they taxi out and take off. 8 passengers, 3 crew on board. So this is a very lightly loaded flight, as one would expect for like what's essentially an essential air service flight. Um, they tell absolutely no one of their intended flight path. They don't tell Texas Air's dispatcher, they don't tell El Dorado, they don't tell Texarkana. They just sort of head off in the dark under VFR flight rules, which
Okay,
is
solid plan. Solid
insane,
plan.
which is just so absolutely batshit insane. I can't believe they did that.
It's like
But
telling mom, "Hey, I'm gonna go to this wild party. I'll be back eventually. See ya, bye," and just leaving her hanging with that.
yeah, and so if you see this little star up here again in the map, that's where they eventually go, is that way, which you'll notice is nowhere near Texarkana.
That's
What
that's pretty much you've overshot Texarkana at that point, bud.
that's if you're trying to find a break in the storm that way, I think the fuel desk is gonna flambe you alive
Yeah, for real.
for wasting that much gas. I don't care that it's free. What do you think? What do you think? The stuff grows on trees? So
There are some very angry accountants right now.
Yeah.
Hope you're proud of yourself, mister.
So we're going to go on to the next slide. I just have some. So there's a full recounting of like the interior cockpit discussion in the NTSB report. That's not really important. What's really
Except for
important,
this one little bit right here.
yeah, except for these bits. Um, so about 12 minutes before impact, the first officer stated, "I sure wish I knew where we were." A few minutes later,
Thanks for inspiring confidence, boss.
he stated, "Painting the ridges and everything else, boss, and I'm not familiar with the terrain." So what they are is lost. They're absolutely lost. I know there's not a lot of navigational aids in the early 1970s. I know there's not a lot of early navigational aids on the specific date and specific time, which we said the specific date, right?
Actually, no, September 27th,
God
1973.
damn it. I thought I had it in
It
here. I must
was,
have skipped it.
well, it was on the last slide, just neither one of us read it.
Oh, fuck. But in September 1973, there's not going to be GPS. There's not going to be a lot, but you have non-directional beacons. You have radio signals. You absolutely can figure out how to get to Texarkana.
Now,
Okay?
so you mentioned that they're flying off VFR.
Yeah.
And if you I think I had to look this up. If you don't know what VFR is, there's two types of flying rules that you can operate under. VFR is visual flight rules, and at the time, it was perfectly legal for a flight like this to be solely on VFR. Um, the other is instrument flight rules, and that's when you're using radar, radio, beacons, and other navigational tools instead of kind of flying by dead reckoning, which VFR is.
What?
Uh, the I'm
What?
not sure how many tools they had access to, but both crew members were IFR qualified, and the Fort Worth Control Center actually picked these guys up on the radar at one point and were standing by for an inevitable call because they kind of figured that it might have been flight 655. They saw they were kind of deviating, and it's like these guys are probably going to call in a few minutes and ask for some help, and they didn't.
Yeah. This is this is just, you know, we're going off in the we're going off into the it, it's that way. I know it's that way.
It's somewhere that way. Fuck it, we're doing it live.
Like this is Ralph and Bill going off in that direction, thinking they know which way Texarkana is. And as you can see, again, 2 minutes and 40 seconds before impact, spoiler alert, the captain, during an ordered descent to 2,000 feet, I assume because this way they can actually see the ground a
Mm.
little bit closer. The first, I don't think it's brought up, but I imagine they have to have at this point pulled out a roadmap and just be like, are any of these major highways that we know that we can just trace back to Texarkana? But like they've flown over I-30 at this point, if I-30 existed, which it did, I think. Um,
Ooh, good
when did
question.
they build I-30 in Arkansas? Live research on air.
Live research. We're gonna figure it out. It might not have been much, but I-30 has been I-30 since August 14th, 1957. So there was
Something.
something there.
Yeah, so at this point, they've flown over I-30. Keep in mind, we just talked about the storm. The storm's not there. The storm is ahead of them. They're trying to like get through the storm that is in their mind like a break in the weather, which may or may not exist, is 35 miles west northwest of El Dorado. So they're flying for this gap that doesn't exist. Um, they've gone down to 2,000 feet, presumably to look at landmarks. And the first officer is saying, I wish I knew where we were so we'd have some idea of the general terrain around this place. Keep in mind the dots there on the transcript, meaning that they definitely are editing out the I wish we knew some idea of the general fucking terrain so we knew around this goddamn place.
I figured it was just some pause. Like he's trying to figure out where he's going and talk at the same time and like can't
Oh, I
walk and chew gum at the same time, I suppose.
I'll be fucked, man. I wish I knew where we were.
I
That could also be it, but, in either
That's
event,
a terrifying thing for two men in charge of an airplane to say because if you don't know where you are, you also don't know how high you need to be flying.
look, I'm gonna be real, 2,000 feet isn't high enough. I don't care how
2,000 feet is really low.
it's not like, no matter how low you are, no matter where you are in a pressurized airliner. Go higher. Figure it out. But they but don't worry, the captain knows that the highest point in this area was 1,200 feet, and they were not near that point.
Oh, well, it's fine. He doesn't know where he is, but he knows that the highest point in the area is 1,200 feet. Cool. This makes sense. I'm sure. Oh,
I
man.
went
What's
to the
this
next slide
slide?
already, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so at at tw tw
This
at
favorite line
'8:52
in any report I've ever read. This is my favorite line.
in age 52 and 17 seconds, the first officer said, minimum en route altitude here is 4,400, and then he was terminated by the sound of the crash. They, the aircraft had at that exact moment crashed headlong at cruising speed into the steep, heavily wooded north slope of Black Fork Mountain in the Wichita Mountain Range. Impact occurred in
Wichita.
what?
Wichita.
Is that how it's pronounced?
That's how
Of
I've
the
always heard
witch
it.
of the Wichita Mountain Range. Impact occurred at an elevation of 2,025 feet and about 600 feet below the top of the ridge. So,
It's a
so
little bit
you,
more than 1,200 feet.
and I would like to point out this is the from the NTSB report. It's very heavily copy or burned, but you can see El Dorado is here at the bottom left. Texarkana is here, very close to it, and then the impact point is nowhere near either of them, Texarkana or El Dorado. It almost seems like there's another airport somewhere. There's a VOR like over here on the top of the next mountain. They flew into the only mountain in this part of Arkansas.
Yeah.
This is like that one guy crashing into the only tree in the desert. It's so stupid. But yeah, they crashed into the
They managed to find it.
I apologize if this seems very anticlimactic, but they flew the plane into the mountain and everybody died. There's very little to this accident, but this is just like one of these really pure accidents of like, do you think they had a good safety culture? No. Do you think they knew what they were
No.
doing? No. Do you think that anything is going to come of this? No. Like this is why there were life insurance vending machines at airports into
It
the 80s.
yeah, this were just two guys that were too overconfident in their skills. It's they had tools to make this a little safer available to them and they just didn't because they hadn't any other time and they'd made it just fine. But any other time they weren't trying to fly around a one of the massive storm cells that develops in this part of the country.
Trying to head for a gap that, again, and I cannot stress this enough, this is not something the NTSB report will tell you because it hadn't happened yet with Southern Airways Flight 242. The gap may or may not have existed.
Yeah, might not have even been
Also,
there.
they were doing it on the ground. The gap could have been the lamppost in the parking lot.
Possibly.
So a lot of different things could have happened here, and they just didn't. They just didn't. They just flew on like absolute morons.
It's it's almost painful at how easily this could have been avoided.
Just don't
I'm
do that. I like there's
This show is going to make me have to start taking blood pressure medication because I start looking into these sort of things and it's like, but you could have just one more step, and this wouldn't have happened. If you had just swallowed your pride for 10 seconds and called somebody or
well, I don't
admitted
even
to
know.
this mistake.
There's like so many different ways of I don't even think this was pride. I think this was genuine confusion. Like we're not even at pride yet. We're at like, gosh, I don't know where we are. Do you think we should get lower and look where it is? Okay. Like like it might be bad.
Not stopping that train of thought, I think, is pride. Thinking
Yeah.
it this kind of stuff only happens to other people. It's not going to happen to us.
Yeah, and also there's the really bad crew resource management because you the first officer is flying. So you've either got the captain not wanting to correct someone on his mistakes because that's an asshole move, which is bad when he's gonna fly the plane into a mountain,
Yeah,
or
no,
you've
no,
got
no.
the
If he's
first
doing
off
something dangerous, you correct him.
or you've got the first officer just listening to the captain blindly and just doing whatever he says, which is also
Okay,
bad.
if you
Because
say
like
so. All
because
right,
like
Ralph.
if we go to the previous slide, I sure wish I knew where we were. This is the co-pilot saying this. If you don't know, you're the one flying the airplane. 2 minutes beforehand, I wish I knew where we were so we'd have some idea of the general terrain. The captain told the first officer the highest point in the area was 1200. The I'm gonna go back to the NTSB report. I guarantee fucking to you that the next line is not, "Are you sure?"
No, it's not. I remember that.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's Oh, this is funny. One of the words in there was the first time I've ever made a mistake in my life. That's great. That's for them trying to figure out
Cool.
where they were lost.
No, okay, that's pride. That's pride. You've messed up before.
Oh, this is a minute
Don't
before
lie to
impact.
us.
I'm gonna read this. I thought it was moving that way on me only, so we just kind of turned a little bit while you was looking at the map. First time I've ever made a mistake in my life. This is like a minute before impact.
Perfect.
I know what it is. That the highest point out here is 1,200 feet. Oh, wait, hold on. The highest point out here is 1,200 feet. Next thing, that right? The whole general area. And then we're not even where that is. I don't believe.
Perfect.
Whistling. Go ahead and look at it. Whistling. More whistling. 250 were about to pass. So they kind of knew where they were. They kind of did knew where they were because they were nearing the page VOR, which is the
Which
thing
is
right here. They just didn't look. They just didn't look at their own charts. They didn't do anything. This was
Christ.
all just stupid pride. Sympathy revoked. These people were morons.
don't don't get other people killed because you're too proud to ask for help.
Yeah, this is be the mom friend. Ask for directions.
Yeah. It's that simple. I
You
have
know,
avoided putting myself in bad situations. I wouldn't say anything life or death, but I've avoided putting myself in bad situations because I'm not afraid to say, I don't think I know what I'm doing here. I need help.
it's like, what the fuck is going on here? It's like my daily mantra. What am I doing? Who am I? What?
How did I
So
get here?
always assume that you are the idiot in this situation, and it kind of helps. And yeah, that's the accident. That's the accident, which is that they just flew into a wall and died. Easily the most avoidable act. I think the descent to 2,000 feet is really like the kicker. Like, just go down there, see if we can find the road. You know, just
Perfect.
that's really when it's just like you deserve this. If this was an empty plane, I'd be laughing at them. But
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately,
They got some guys just trying to go home, though.
we have 8 people and a flight attendant in the back who do not deserve to be on this plane with you. So
Fantastic.
so anyways, now we have to go on to what did we learn? Next slide. What did we learn? Let's go on to the next slide after that. Uh, nothing.
Nothing. Nothing. There
Um,
is a little less than a year later, the NTSB, I'm sorry, a little more than a year later, October 8, 1974, the NTSB issued a report that made so the NTSB doesn't write rules. They can make recommendations, but they can't write the rules. And their official recommendation was uh, if pilots who exhibit unprofessionalism when flying, try to correct that. Uh, try to by example and constructive criticism of performance, instill them with higher standards of the pilot group and
yeah,
strengthen the co-pilot's responsibility for safety in the flight. And that's it.
yeah.
It
This is a
ignores a lot
very
of root cause.
This is a very not investigated accident. This came at the same period of time where I was going through other NTSB reports around this period. Allegheny Airlines crashed 4 planes in 3 years around the same time period, most of which were not substantial. Um, After this, TWA Flight 514 would crash into the ground in Virginia under very similar circumstances. I can't quite remember that one, but that absolutely could have been prevented, maybe by this, maybe by something else. Um, Going all the way up into the 90s, and beyond that, American Airlines Flight 965 did this exact thing in well, trying to land in Colombia and just crashed into a mountain after they flew the wrong way. That finally that got results because that was what convinced airlines to install GPS in their airplanes. Which,
That's a step,
if you
I
want to think
guess.
about it, the 757 didn't have GPS in it until 1996. Modern airliner like that.
Okay. Okay.
Um, there have been CFIT style events like this, controlled flight into terrain events like this, going all the way up to the crash of corporate airlines flight 5966 in 2004, which, and it just, this did, the actual response to this was nothing.
It
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
It
nothing changed. Maybe like a 5-minute job briefing with every flight crew before their next flight. It's like, hey, you can avoid it by doing this. Have we had this conversation? If so, please sign here so I have it on record.
Yeah, like, it might have made there might have been a loss of
Maybe.
productivity at Texas International because everybody went to the funeral for
Yeah.
a day.
That
And
probably had a larger impact on the industry than any rule change or culture change.
yeah, and just so that we're aware, 11 people died in the dark in a mountain in the middle of nowhere, where of middle Arkansas, and nobody gave two shits. Like, this is just sort of
It
what flying in the early 70s was like.
Well, they also weren't reported missing for a
Several
couple of
hours.
hours after they were due,
Yeah.
and then it still took what 3 days to find them.
Yeah. That's because they weren't anywhere near their flight path.
Yeah, no, nobody was going. Well, maybe we ought to check way up here because that makes sense.
But this was cowboy aviation and treetop airways, you know, and I wish I could say that this was the end of Texas International, but no, we'll get onto that in a couple more slides. Because again, this is probably how long have we been recording for, Zach?
About an hour and a half.
Wow, this is gonna be one of our shorter episodes. This is
Absolutely.
so interesting. Just because there's nothing like I do kind of like the idea of this episode being we learned almost nothing, because there is almost nothing to learn here. There was no substantial changes, no substantial thought processes or
Well,
anything, but
I
it speaks to the time, and that's what we take away from it now.
if I can, I would like to rephrase something you said slightly. There is plenty to learn from this situation, but they didn't.
Yes. That is a very
I
good way of putting it. We chose to learn nothing.
I One of the things I would like to do with this podcast, besides entertain all of the listeners, I would like to empower all of you to Not be afraid to ask questions, please. Please ask questions. If you're not sure what you're doing, I don't care if you're working as a fry cook at McDonald's or flying a jet airliner. If you're not sure what you're doing, please ask somebody for help. You can save yourself, you can save a lot of people. I mean, even if nobody is at risk of injury, you could save yourself a lot of headache by having to undo work that you did incorrectly. Don't let a cowboy culture bring you to a bad spot.
Yeah, don't let Treetop Airways guide you through machismo into the side of a mountain. No, but I'm trying to be serious here, but I'm stretching the metaphors. Like, it's not worth it to just go along with it because, like, oh, that's the way we've always done it, while the
Yeah.
plane flies towards the mountain.
What
Like, the
what
life
was
you
that
save may not be your own.
that quote I mentioned a few episodes back? Tradition is a dangerous substitute for critical thinking.
Yes, that's a really good one. But yeah, and this goes for, like, always sort of read between the lines and stuff like this too. Like, this NTSB report is like, I'll be honest, the reason why we picked this accent is because the NTSB report was 38 pages, and half of it was the cockpit voice
38
rec
pages.
was the cockpit voice recorder transcript. 11 people died in 38 pages. We read the RAIB report for the Wooten Bassett Spat incident, it was 100 something, and no one even got hurt.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's it's a real testament to how, like, values have changed. You could just die in, like, a fiery explosion on the side of a mountain, and nobody gave 2 shits. And I'll show you how little shits were given, okay? I'm gonna go to the "Where are they now" slide. So we gotta go to "Where are they now?" and then the next slide. Where are they now? They're still fucking there on the
Well,
side of Black Rock Mountain.
the plane's there.
The planes, they didn't clean it up. It's not inaccessible, it's in fucking Arkansas. The plane is
It,
still there.
so that's not super uncommon for plane crashes,
I
from what I've
okay,
seen. This is
okay,
a hard to access area.
not they left the entire tail section of the airplane. I know what color the plane's carpet is because there's apparently still chunks of it. It's purple, by the way. I guess they
Oh,
didn't
that
re
is so 70s.
I guess they didn't reupholster it from when it was the purple and purple from the first Texas International.
They probably went with a different shade of purple. You know, the 70s were a different time.
Who kn Probably triple purple.
You thought double purple was cool. We're in the kicking 70s now. We got triple purple.
But yeah, the plane is still out there. If you need bits for a Convair 600, lightly used,
I'm
like
sure you can find some whole pieces somewhere in there.
the seat frames are still intact.
Oh,
There's still
I'm looking at the link in the show notes. And why didn't you include the picture of the guy standing next to an almost entire engine?
because I only had enough space and I wanted the bits where you could see the lettering on the
Okay, that's
airplane
fair.
and the tail. The entire tail is there. It's it's
Dude, these
just
pictures are insane.
the registration is still on the airplane. Like, ugh.
Yeah, the baggage door is still there.
They left almost everything that wasn't the corpses and, like, wasn't immediately necessary.
That is incredible. There is the builder's plate for one of the engines.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's all
How are there coordinates for this?
here on the, here, go back 2 slides, 3 slides, 4
Oh,
slides.
that's right. That's right. That's right.
34 degrees, 42 minutes, 5 seconds north, 94 degrees, 20 minutes west.
Let's punch those in. I might do a road trip.
You've got to hike for the last little bit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right, you don't mind that.
It's better than walking on ballast. I bet I'll be fine. Okay. Listeners, if I go out and find this, I will take pictures and we will include them in a future episode and maybe an Instagram post.
Oh, hell yeah.
All right. Well, plane's still there.
So,
What's this next slide with this jolly looking fellow?
oh boy. Okay,
Well, those are a lot of cool airlines. What
I
happened to
gotta,
them?
okay, I gotta like do a deep breath here. Okay, what happened to Texas International after it got after this accident? None of this has to do with the accident, but this little rinky dink Texas airline is like the first domino into making the modern aviation industry the way that it is. Okay? You all need to go with me on this journey. So,
Let me get my seatbelt buckled in for this one.
Frank Lorenzo formed Jet Capital Corporation with his friend Robert Carney. I knew I had his name in here somewhere. They they formed Universal Airlines and then they refinanced British West Indian Airways. We talked about that already. They they took control of Texas International in 1971. Texas International's impressive turnaround was almost certainly achieved through aggressive cuts at all levels from wages to operations. Again, I don't think any of this was implemented by the time that this crash happened. It was probably all certainly afterwards. Then, and I need to point this out, between 19 and I'm not going to give specific dates because there's so much happening all at once. Between 1970 and 1971, Francisco Lorenzo, he was of Spanish descent, so his name is Francisco, but everyone just calls him Frank, did the following. He gained control of Texas International Airways. He made Texas International into an extremely profitable airline almost overnight. He developed one of the first frequent flyer miles programs with Texas International. He
Okay.
developed some of the first low fare programs for an interstate airline. Why? Which because there was significant. This is all happening like right at the eve of deregulation. In which deregulation in the airline industry was in 1977 into like 78. So, which is this is basically the reset button for the commercial aviation industry as a whole in the US. Texas International goes through deregulation, comes out swinging. First, he tries to buy National Airlines. National Airlines does not get bought by him. Instead, it gets bought by Pan Am. This is widely considered to be a bad move because National and Pan Am have almost no fleet overlap, conflicting unions, and different route structures. It cost Pan Am a shitload of money. Is one of the reasons why they were in such a shitty financial position throughout the 80s and 90s. So he tried to buy National, didn't work. He tried to buy TWA, that also didn't work. Then he formed New York Air out of whole cloth. New York Air was essentially Texas International, but it was based in Manhattan. They had they had onboard snacks called the Air Nosh, to give you an idea. They had a really cute, they had red airplanes with a little apple on the tail. It was all very interesting. New York Air was, of course, a completely non-union airline, something that the Texas International crews did not like. Um,
Yeah.
Texas International crews planned on striking and would have it had not the Patco strike happened first.
Oh,
The um, by the way, it's at some point in this, he forms Texas Air Corporation, which is the holding company for all of this. So I might say Texas Air. That's not Texas International Airlines. Two separate things. Um, then he goes for broke. And by goes for broke, he does not go for broke. He swings at something and hits it intentionally. He buys Continental Airlines,
okay.
and by extension, its subsidiary Continental Air Micronesia. Continental Airlines is such a weird entity in this because Continental Airlines at the time, its CEO was so pro-union, and so like such a friend of labor that the looming specter of Frank Lorenzo is enough to drive the CEO of Continental, Alvin Feldman, to blow his own brains out in his office.
Ooh, oh dear God.
Yes. So Frank Lorenzo already has a body count. Um, he then proceeded to break a strike at Continental with the Machinist Union by filing for bankruptcy and laying off 65% of the airline's employees while still having $50 million dollars in cash at the time. Okay. On hand at the airline. Continental is now reformed as an upstart, scrappy LCC with almost no labor costs, and they're able to do whatever the hell they want to. Texas Air then gets merged into Continental, so Texas Air is gone. Then, then Texas Air Corp buys Bar Harbor Airlines and Rocky Mountain Airways and People Express Airways, which is a upstart LCC that was doing transatlantic stuff similar to Laker Skytrain. People Express also did low fares domestically as well. They owned Brit Airways, Provincetown Boston Airlines, and the remains of Frontier Airlines, which was either going out of business or had been out of business already.
Oh,
This is the first Frontier. This is not the LCC Frontier that we know nowadays. There were two Frontiers. Um, then he merged together. Let's see if I got these transitions right. He merged together Provincetown, Boston, Rocky Mountain, and Bar Harbor into with Brit Airway. Oh, nope, that didn't happen yet. So he merged them together
oh my
into
god.
Brit Airways, which would eventually become ExpressJet. I have that in the later transition. Keep in mind, all of this shit is happening. While all this shit is happening, TWA comes knocking politely at the door because keep in mind that Frank Lorenzo has driven the CEO of Continental to end his own life, right? The looming specter of Carl Icahn is so scary that TWA wants Frank Lorenzo to buy them.
Oh my god.
Frank Lorenzo makes an offer. Frank Lorenzo doesn't buy them only because Carl Icahn is not an airline. And so there's no regulatory approval needed to buy TWA for him, while Texas Air Corp would have. So Texas Air, so TWA goes off to Carl Icahn. Then he merges New York Air into Continental. So New York Air is gone. Then let's see what happens next. Um, yes, Frank Lorenzo buys Eastern Airlines, which is like he's collecting the infinity stones of major carriers at this point.
Yeah, this is a lot.
And I would like to point out that Frank Lorenzo, at this stage, between all of his different subsidiary airlines, owns 20% of the US air industry. And Texas Airport is essentially the second largest airline in the world after Aeroflot, the Soviet national airline.
Yeah. What the hell?
And and then let's see. And then so something else we should note about what's it called? About Eastern is that Eastern basically has been having labor issues for like the last 15 so years, just because Eastern is like, I don't know why. Its previous CEO was having hated unions too. So there was always these fights with the labor unions, and it was always not great. So Lorenzo tries to deal with it, and it's not going well. And let me just see. I know I put these in the right order. So yes, he merged all of his regional airlines together into ExpressJet, which is operating now for like um, all of his smaller things together. That's not a sentence. I'm sorry. It merged all of his regional airlines together into ExpressJet, which formed basically all the commuter operations for a Continental. Okay.
Okay.
Then he sold off the Eastern Shuttle. Okay. To a man who liked him very much. Do you see this text on the screen?
I unfortunately do.
Read who is it attributed to?
Donald Trump.
And then do you see the color picture? Are you watching this on the slide, or
I'm
you have to go through the slide transitions?
Oh, no, 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 no. Hang on. Hold up. I didn't know there were transitions on this one.
Oh,
Uh-oh, where are they? Okay, okay, okay. I see what you did. Color, picture.
through it all, Frank just kept quiet and took the heat.
Oh!
Donald Trump,
Oh, back when he looked a little more human.
Frank Lorenzo took the Eastern Air Shuttle, which was the New York to Washington D.C. shuttle service that Eastern had operated very profitably, and sold it off to Donald Trump.
God,
Donald
Donald
Trump.
Trump actually looks kind of normal in this photo. He's not in a suit. He's in like a silk polo shirt,
I
which
s-
it's a pink silk
yes,
polo
a
shirt.
big silk polo. It's like the axes of evil are here. Um, Something else I should point, and so, do you mind reading this quote from Donald J. Trump?
Do you want the whole thing here?
At least a little bit. This is just because I had to
I'm not.
build.
I'm not going to do the voice. I can't. I
I
can't do the
wasn't going to
voice
ask
that
you to.
long.
I,
It says, through it all, Frank just kept quiet and took the heat. In life, most people are big talk and no action. Frank is that rare person who is all action and no talk. The funny thing is, I found Frank, man to man, to be a very different guy from the reclusive, evil maniac you read about in the business press. I met with him numerous times and invariably found him relaxed, charming, and compassionate, despite his feelings about the union leaders at Eastern Airlines. Frank is also a devoted family man who cares very deeply about his wife, Sharon, and their children. And that comes from the book Trump Surviving at the Top. I was about to say that sounds very like very delicate prose for Trump, but now I'm realizing it was probably a ghostwriter.
yeah, and I would also like to point out the reason I had you read that is that Eastern Airlines, their unions, absolutely were like fighting tooth and nail with Eastern's management before Frank
Oh yeah.
Lorenzo took over and afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Um, Frank Lorenzo, whose approach to unions were so bad that the CEO of Continental had to end his own life, um, rather than deal with it.
Oh
Um,
my
Frank
god.
Lorenzo ran Eastern Airlines into the ground, and with the unions going, basically was running at a reduced service with flights being operated by scabs. Um, he had tried to put the airline into bankruptcy to repeat what he did with Continental, but between 1983 and no, between 1970, between 1983 and whenever he did the Continental bankruptcy, I think it was in like the late 70s, and now bankruptcy laws had changed, so you couldn't just fire the unions because you didn't have any money left. So Eastern was operating at reduced schedules, reduced everything. A bankruptcy trustee could not find a way to get around this and dissolved Eastern Airlines entirely. Okay?
Quitting and taking your ball home
No,
instead of just trying to work with your
No, that
union.
wasn't Lorenzo. That was the bankruptcy trustee from the court.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um, at this point, Frank Lorenzo um, then he sells his remaining shares on Continental to SAS, the Scandinavian airline system, for
Mhm.
some fucking reason. Continental would later
Okay.
then go broke, and Texas Air Corp renamed itself to Continental Airlines Holdings. Continental goes broke because of the Gulf War causing a jump in fuel prices
Ooh,
says, in the 1990s, because this all happened before 1991. And then it eventually gets bailed out by by an Air Canada led venture that takes it into the 2000s, into like the late 90s and the 2000s, that we sort of know as the Continental Airlines with the globe on the tail. That was all post Lorenzo.
okay.
Um, Meanwhile, Frank Lorenzo tries to start up a new airline. And one more click. The FAA declares him unfit to run an airline in 1991. This article is from 1994, but he was absolutely declared unfit to run an airline in 1991. The FAA says that apparently, if it hadn't been for the grace of God and some of their inspectors, there would have been a massive accident at Continental or Eastern or something.
Oh
And
God, how bad were those planes?
I don't know, but um, there weren't fatal accidents. He is banned from ever being on the management of an airline again in
Is
1991.
is there anybody else that has the same status, or
I
is he
have no
a
idea.
special
It's
kind
very
of
rare.
evil?
It's very rare. Not even Carl Icahn got that bad. Not even the guys at ValueJet got that bad. Frank
Huh.
Lorenzo Frank Lorenzo pillaged his way through the airline industry so bad the FAA banned him under H.W. Bush.
That's a special level of terrible.
Yeah, like Continental Airline had $5.4 billion in debt by 1989. They were the largest ever losses reported by a U.S. airline. No, following the loss of Eastern, Texas Air rebranded itself as Continental Airlines Holdings. Oh God, they were just all doing such terrible things. It was so bad. Yeah, and I'm gonna read from Wikipedia here. I copied it from Wikipedia, but it's great. Frank Lorenzo is widely regarded as one of the most controversial and by many accounts most destructive figures in the history of American commercial aviation. While some credit him with innovative cost cutting during the era of deregulation, his legacy is overwhelmingly defined by union busting, asset stripping, and the deliberate collapse of several major airlines, including Eastern and Frontier. Because I don't Frontier was already kind of on the way out, but I wonder if he just helped it along even more, gave it the little coup de grace.
It sure seems like it.
But keep in mind, Frank Lorenzo did all of this, and yet somehow this accident wasn't his fault. I
Sure
mean,
didn't
this
help his reputation, though. I'm sure.
nobody even talks about this accident. That's the fascinating thing. We are still talking about the crash of Flight 655, and yet somehow still didn't. It's just
Yeah,
just all the notes I
poor
have in
timing.
here. You should just read the notes in here, Zach. All of the notes are
That's
just
where I was following originally. That's why
it's
I
ju
didn't see the picture of Trump or the color picture of Trump.
yeah, it's just so I hid it under that because I wanted to surprise you.
Oh my God.
But this is just so everything. Oh, it's just and this all came from Texas International. That's sort of what we need to remember in all this. Why am I bringing this
I
up?
mean, cowboy culture, I suppose. It goes all the way to the top.
Yep, and then Spanish cowboy culture too.
A
But
little bit, yeah.
now we have to go on to the next slide. Is Frank Lorenzo dead yet? No.
How long ago was this picture taken?
2024.
Oof. Oof. Are you sure he's not dead? He doesn't look great.
I looked it up. I checked before I wrote this. Um,
I've I've seen people in caskets that look better than that.
uh-huh.
Oh God. Well, I
Evil,
guess
evil pickles.
I you know, only the good die young, but at least it looks like he's not doing great in his old age.
I
He's living forever, but I hope it's at least uncomfortable.
living forever at what cost?
Was it worth it? Yes, I got a 2% return.
So, Jesus. But yeah, anyways, that's the episode. This is probably one of our shorter ones. I'm honestly flabbergasted that
Yeah.
how long have we been recording for?
I don't know. I still have the slideshow open. We are at an hour 48.
Oh boy, wow, this is gonna be I hope this one doesn't suck like the Dnieper Zerzinsk one does, but we will clear 2 hours at least because we still have one more slide to go. So obviously, we first must do a call to action. Did you almost die if you on public transit? If you did, we would love to hear your story. Please email us at syddoywtw@gmail.com.
I want you to
Okay.
know I was very frustrated because I was preparing a quick little cheat sheet for this before I looked at the slide deck, and I made sure to write down the email. And then what did you do? You put the email in here, so I didn't
I
have to write it down.
I have been copying this slide back and forth across the last 4 presentations.
Perfect. No notes.
So, but because we have not received a story of someone almost dying on public transit, I had to supply my own that I found on the internet. So I'm going to
Oh
go to the
boy.
next one. Zach, what does this slide look like to you?
Let me see the slideshow version of it because I was
There's
caught up in a bunch
there's
of
a
notes down there.
it's so what
It's
do you
I see a decent sized container ship. It's small by today's standards, and a YouTube video titled SL7 Full Scale Cavitation Testing. I don't like that term cavitation.
okay, so this is one of the great sea stories that nobody knows about. This is a video that I was made aware of thanks to someone in the Well, There's Your Problem Discord server, as all great things are. And the story is just so incredibly wild. So in the 1960s, the Sealand Corporation, the people who basically invented the container ship, had a great idea, which is that what if we made really, 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 really fast container ships? Like ones that can go in excess of 30 knots. Okay? What if we did
Heck,
that?
what? I never know how fast knots are. Hang on, knots to 30 knots to mph. Just shy of 35 mile an hour,
This
which
is
is
real.
breakneck speed for a container ship.
Yes, this is breakneck speed for a container ship. These ships can haul fucking ass, and they would have been fantastic if it hadn't been for the Arab oil crisis because they drank fuel. Um, these vessels, the SL7 class of container ship, would eventually be sold to the U.S. Navy, and are the Bellatrix class. Um, no, that's not right. It's the USNS Bellatrix is one of them, but they're a class of ro-ro forward operating base ship now, where basically they deliver like tanks and stuff to the battlefield in the first wave. Ma- I'm trying to figure out what the acronym is. MARAD. That's like whatever division they're in.
I have no clue.
You could Google it, Zach.
I c- MARAD. Let's see.
USNS Bellatrix. That's what it is. Just Google that.
Oh, okay. Spell tricks have one or two L's.
Too.
Do.
It's the Algol class.
Cargo
Mili-
ship, part of the
mili-
Ready Reserve Force.
ready.
Where? What was that acronym? MA.
No, that's a different thing. I realized I read it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hi, we're doing live research again. Um,
We are pros.
there was but actually the USNS Bellatrix is actually the one that we're talking about because that was the former Sealand Trade, which is the one in this video. The 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 story of the SL7 is very long and very complicated, but basically they never really worked as well as they could have. They drank fuel. They were great, but they also were just not as fast as they could, not as good as they could have been. But one of the issues they had was that they just kept eating propellers.
That
The
doesn't seem like that should
the propellers were
possibly.
spinning so fast the cavitation bubbles were eating the surface away.
How? What? How does that work?
Well, Sealand didn't know either. Sealand had no idea. And so if you read the very long description, which is actually just the YouTube description to this video that I have up here, um, nobody could really figure out why, but the guys at Sealand, which by the way, the guy at Sealand in charge of the SL7 project was like some really young guy who happened to be put in charge of this because everybody above him quit because it was such an insane idea
Oh
to make
God.
these ships. He was approached by a team of commercial divers who said that they could film the underside of the ship as it sailed over them and see the cavitation happening in real life.
I'm already having the hair stand up on the back of my
Yeah,
neck.
do you scuba dive at all, Zach?
I have looked into it.
So you
I
know that
have
you're
not, but I have looked into like basic safety stuff, and going under a vessel of any kind is a no-no.
yeah, and
Any powered
so
vessel, I should say. They don't care if you go under a canoe.
yeah, but so these guys offered to go out to an area of the Caribbean called Browns Deep, and I had to look it up. I believe it's part of the Milwaukee Deep, which is like some of the deepest part of the Caribbean Sea, of the Caribbean
Ooh.
out by the Virgin Islands, and basically go underneath the SL trade as it sailed over them at 33 knots and film it. How fast is 33 knots, Zach?
I'm going to take a guess that it's 32. Let's see. No, I'm sorry. 33 knots is just barely shy of 38 miles an hour.
Yeah,
That's terrifying. Those are some serious vortexes from the propellers at 38 miles an hour.
and it also has cold water intakes underneath the ship too. Um, there were going to be 3 divers, 2
I
on the sides and 1 underneath on the center line. And
I don't like this.
let's watch the footage they got. This is just did you hit play?
I did.
Cool. There's no sound. Thank God.
All right, here comes.
It's trucking. It's trucking along.
Oh god, look at all that smoke coming out. What was that about guzzling oil?
Yeah,
Well, there it is. It's all going blown straight out the stack.
it turns oil into smoke.
This is our industrial size smoke machine. Look at that plume on the bow. Oh my
Yeah,
god, they're moving
and
so fast.
then look, they have the little flags out and everything. Divers are here. It's like, yeah, 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 and but just watch as it goes. See,
Oh,
it's going so quickly.
plumes are going like a solid 10, 12 feet above the water line.
And then look from the underneath. Look as the propellers go by. Oh, it's so cool. I love this video.
I think I'm a
I
few seconds behind you. I'm trying to
no,
figure out
no,
what I'm
I
looking at here. It's
it's the
underwater.
underside of the ship.
Huh. That's way closer than I would ever get. Oh, those propellers are huge. Oh my god. They're screw propellers too. Jesus. Okay. So I didn't see anything great in there,
So
but I also only saw stuff from the sides. Didn't you say there were three?
I'm going to read from the description. After the ship went roaring past, the 2 side divers surfaced, but the center line diver was nowhere to be seen. After a couple of
God
panicked minutes,
damn it.
they saw him surface way astern, still being churned about in the wake. His dive mask was gone, and the only thing left of his camera were the 2 handles from the waterproof housing. The guy, after submerging, had misjudged how much time he had to prepare and had narrowly missed being struck by the bulbous bow. He got rolled over and over and end over end, grazing the keel for the entire ship length, narrowly
Oh,
missed being sucked into the 2 condenser sea scoops, and somehow managed to escape the propellers.
getting keel hauled for science.
Getting keel hauled by a, how long is this? Getting keel hauled by a 946-foot long container ship.
Oh, that's so many barnacles.
But here's the best part. These the Sealand crew started asking some very pointed questions at this point, and it turns out that these guys were frauds. They had never done this before in their life. They had presented proof
You
beforehand.
don't say.
They just found that video somewhere. This was to get their first paying dive job from like in their life was to like lying to Sealand.
I mean, if I criticize them for that, I would be incredibly hypocritical because I feel this is the pinnacle of my mantra, which is fake it till you make it.
Do you think those guys ever like thought about it? Like, oh shit, we're actually doing this.
Oh boy. Hey, Sealand actually said yes. Um, do you know if you know how to book tickets down to the Virgin Islands?
Did Hey guys, that container ship's really big. Did we like think about this beforehand?
Hey guys, I'm having second thoughts about getting in the water directly underneath a 900-foot container ship, but it pays really well, so you know what? We'll be okay.
So yeah,
Oh,
if you this is I love this story. Every time I meet someone who scuba dives, I show them this. The pro
I'm showing this to my wife. This is amazing. She wants
it's
to scuba dive so bad. I'll say, hey, maybe we could try this out. Let's see how this goes.
the ships are still around. You could ask the Navy. You could ask the Navy, let us do it again. We'll get it right
Dear
this time.
Navy, I run a small podcast with about 100 listeners and would like to reenact an incident.
Please let me dive underneath the USNS.
Please send a ship to the Virgin Islands and meet me there. Not any ship though. I need this ship.
I need the Bellatrix that you're actively decommissioning because these things are like 50 years old. One last run for glory. It's gonna taste blood once in its life. Again.
Oh my god. That's terrifying. Missed the water scoops, but still got keel hauled for 900 feet.
946 feet. These things were doing 40 miles an hour, too. Getting keel hauled
Oh,
at 40 miles an hour must be like getting dragged behind a truck.
oh. And then you're in salt water, so even once it's over, the pain's not done with.
It's so funny. I love this story so much.
This is incredible.
It's like it's like I will say the stories that listeners you have to send in, I would prefer them to be yours. But if you have other nonsense like this that's verifiable with proof, I'm glad to recount it as well. But it needs to have proof. This is video evidence of how stupid they were.
Yeah. I'll still throw the caveat out there that if you have a good story from public transit that maybe you didn't almost die, but it's still an entertaining story, I'll take that too. Just give me something.
Yeah, give us your stories. We need your stories.
I want to break them down. I want to
Otherwise,
figure
we're going to
out
keep
why
talking.
your operator did that.
Otherwise, we're going to keep talking about airliners that flew into cliffs. I have a
Oh,
whole
last note before we go. Speaking of the airliner, the let's see. I was taking a look at topographical maps for the area of this crash, uh, and when it said that they crashed about 600 feet below the top of the ridge, if the coordinates are correct, or even the other set of coordinates that I found that are just slightly off, uh, they were within a couple of 100 feet of clearing the mountain. Like that was 600 feet below the top of the mountain, and it is like a sudden rapid rise to that point. And if they had just been a little bit higher a few seconds earlier, they would have cleared it with no
Yeah,
problem.
it really was just like God decided to punish them for their hubris today.
Yeah, I mean that's all I can figure. They pissed off somebody.
So
I ask questions, people. Ask questions. Your safety is not your pride is not worth the safety of you and those around you.
don't go to 2,000 feet in the dark, just ever.
Yeah, no. You ought to hit 2,000 feet like when you have the runway in sight, and that's it.
Always fly IFR. That is something they do now. We kind
Yes.
of learned that, but we knew that beforehand, so I'm not sure that counts.
I think they push for it more, but there are still circumstances where VFR is okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Thank you all for listening.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all
I,
for taking part in this podcast with us.
I surprise shorter episode. I guess we did break 2 hours. We're coming
Yeah,
up on 205.
we will not be doing this again. This will be much longer next time.
I don't know. Someday we're going to talk about another one that's so dumb and over so quickly. We'll get there again.
Maybe. I hope maybe, possibly. Who knows? But yeah, that's the episode. I'm gonna hit stop now. Let me hit
Bye.
bye. Where's the stop button on Zencaster? There it is.